Good evening. Welcome to week 5. We're halfway through the course for uh, APS Intel 450, Terrorism and Counterterrorism. What I'm focusing on now is the counterterrorism piece, and your forum discussion has the question of strategy and a critique of U.S. strategy. And I'm just going to kind of throw my opinions here based on some of the readings and based on some of my personal experiences, what we've done well, what we haven't done well since 9/11. Now, a lot of your readings talk about what we didn't do well, but I want to actually start off with the strong points. And the first area I would say right here would be leadership targeting. And I know my handwriting is a little sloppy, but I can't. It's a little hard to write with this computer program, but I'll see what I can do. So leadership targeting, and this is specifically drones. And we see this, Pakistan border. We've pretty much decimated Al Qaeda using drone strikes. And we've done it pretty well. The Al Qaeda of now is far different than the Al Qaeda of 2011, 2001, and we've used drones very effectively against some of those emerging Al Qaeda sections. Al Qaeda in Yemen, Al Qaeda in North Africa. So this is a pretty big positive that we've instituted. And I think that is definitely what the U.S. has done well. The second thing here, and this picture is a little bit bad, but I would say security assistance. And this is, you have to exclude Iraq and Afghanistan from this. But what you see here is in the Philippines here. This is OEFP, Operation Enduring Freedom P, what was called. And this, Iraq and Afghanistan got a lot of news between 2002 and 2010, but this was a very, very effective counterinsurgency against the Moros, which were Al-Qaeda affiliates that were in the Philippines. And U.S. Special Forces just went in, they trained the Philippine military, they worked in security assistance, civil assistance, provide weapons, on-the-ground intelligence and training, and it was effective. And most importantly, it was cheap. Total cost of this program was about $50 million. That's what we spend in a day in Iraq and Afghanistan. So for effectively a far better security posture, we achieved our effects. And this is what we're kind of doing in North Africa now. We're doing it in the Horn of Africa. We're, to a lesser extent, doing it in Yemen. But that's probably a big positive on the global war on terror. Again, doesn't get a lot of news, doesn't get a lot of headlines, but that's definitely a huge win for the U.S., for U.S. policy. And then here, the final thing I would say is Saudi Arabia. And this is, again, something that has not garnered a lot of attention in the last 10 years, but due to American policy, American pressures, and recognition within their own government, the Saudi government has done a complete 180 since 9/11 and since several attacks on their own territory. They've gone everything from very good counterterrorism, so actually the military side, the military and intelligence side of counterterrorism, but more importantly, to the political reforms. Some of you probably don't remember this, but one of the reasons we went into Iraq was to kind of have more moderate political reforms in the Muslim world. Whether we did it because of Iraq or not, certain debate, but Saudi Arabia has definitely instituted political reforms that have been successful. And just as a side note, they have a detention program that's it's kind of like celebrity rehab in the United States. So if they catch a guy goes to Guantanamo and he gets reparated to Saudi Arabia, he goes into kind of a rehab program where he's given counseling and given family gets to visit, and that's been very successful in turning terrorists into informants, as well as turning terrorists away from lives of terrorism and turning them into informants. And in fact, some of you might recall in 2010, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula used printer bombers attempted to use printer bombers to blow up several U.S. cargo plots. How that broke up is because a detainee in Saudi Arabian prison ratted out his old friends and old networks, and they were able to run him against against the Al-Qaeda in Yemen. So those are kind of successes, but in my personal opinion, we've had far more failures than successes. And what has the U.S. done poorly? We can debate about this until the cows come home, but I think there's very few people that 8, 10 years, 11, 12 years since Afghanistan that we could say these are success stories, Iraq and Afghanistan. Very few people could say that our military reformed these political institutions and that they're wonderful havens for democracy. The news in Iraq gets worse and worse every day, and the news in Afghanistan continues to just be bad. And given the resources we put in these countries, we've gotten very poor outcomes. So I'm going to kind of chalk that up to just a massive failure in the global war on terror is invading these countries. And I think we've learned that it's very hard to invade countries, build their political institutions from the bottom up, and do it in a cost-effective way. So again, these would probably be the biggest failures. Second here would be probably messaging, and that is a picture of Guantanamo Bay right here. That was, I think, the message we got or we sent out to the world was far the cost was far higher than the intelligence we got or the value we got. Guantanamo would be one way. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan probably sent bad messages. Israel-Palestinian issue. We never in the last 10 years have really been effective with inroads into the Muslim world. And that's a lot of it is our messaging. A lot of it is our policies as well. And then the third failure is, and it's something I work on, is WMD. Now I teach another class here, INTL 454, which is forecasting terrorism, but it's really a WMD terrorism class. And we go into this in depth, but I would say, given how much cost we can, or how little effort we have to do, we should be securing, at the very least, securing WMD. And if you take my class, I go into detail about this process. I also say, WMD terrorism is really the only terrorism. It represents the only existential threat to our country. So that is a critical point that we've been failure on. And you could talk about former Soviet Union, although that's becoming more and more of a success story. Iran, closer to the bomb, North Korea, and then Pakistan. In Pakistan, especially favored because that's where you have Islamic extremists and nuclear weapons, and that program has advanced in the last few years. So again, these are successes, these are failures, in my opinion. I look forward to your questions on the discussion board, and if there's any issues, please let me know.